Whenever we tune into the radio, flip on the TV, or scroll through our social media feeds, we are immediately bombarded with distressing news. From global pandemics to acts of street violence, international conflicts to climate catastrophes, these tragic events flood our minds. And if we linger too long in this cycle, the world can seem like an endlessly terrible place. This isn't to say that these events aren't significant or that we should deny the existence of such tragedies. In fact, the media can sometimes be a useful tool for keeping us informed, and in some cases, it even spurs us into action, motivating us to make positive changes in our lives and for others. However, the reality is that constant exposure to negative news can have more harmful effects than we realize. Research suggests that consuming repeated negative content makes us feel insecure, anxious, and even afraid. In some instances, misinformation or fake news has led to chaos and unnecessary panic. Unfortunately, we live in an age where the sheer volume of tragic or alarming content is greater than ever before. Moreover, the way we consume this information has shifted, and not for the better. When negativity dominates the news, it shapes how we perceive the world. It's essential to remember that media outlets are, by and large, profit-driven entities. The information they deliver is designed to capture and hold our attention because in doing so, they make money. This dynamic means that what we choose to focus on greatly influences how we think, feel, and view the world. If we constantly consume hateful or negative content, our own thoughts and attitudes are likely to reflect that same negativity. History has shown us the dangers of media manipulation. Nazi politician Joseph Goebbels knew the power of propaganda and used it effectively to shape the German people's mindset during World War II. The frightening truth is that even today, the media has this same power. You might expect the media to deliver information responsibly for the public's well-being, but in reality, that's often not the case. Some media outlets strive to be independent and fact-driven, but many others chase spectacle and controversy to boost their ratings. The media's need to sell information means that stories involving conflict, catastrophe, and violence are more likely to make headlines. This approach attracts attention, sells stories, and keeps viewers hooked. In today's world, news consumption has evolved rapidly. From newspapers to 24/7 live streams on social media, we are now constantly connected to news from around the globe. But despite the massive increase in news sources, the way information is presented has remained largely the same. It's always a selective snapshot of reality. Take a moment to consider this. When you read the news, you're seeing a very tiny fraction of what's happening in the world. An elderly woman feeding her cat, cars quietly moving down a highway, or a pinecone falling from a tree. These are events too, just like the ones we hear about in the news. But because they aren't deemed newsworthy, they're left out of the picture. The events that do make the headlines are magnified, amplified, and made to seem far more significant than they might actually be. The rise of the internet has democratized the way we consume and share information. Not only do large media corporations share the news, but individual content creators and smaller outlets are now part of the mix. This decentralized approach offers both benefits and drawbacks. While we gain access to a broader range of voices and perspectives, it also means that misinformation spreads more easily. We've seen the rise of echo chambers, spaces where only certain ideas and beliefs are repeated and reinforced, sometimes leading to dangerous misconceptions. Algorithms used by social media platforms play a major role in this. By recommending content based on what we've already watched or liked, these algorithms create a feedback loop that narrows our view of the world. We are led further and further down rabbit holes, where our reality becomes shaped by a limited, often biased, flow of information. This is where the concept of motivational reasoning comes into play. Human beings often make decisions not based on objective facts, but on pre-existing beliefs. When we're constantly bombarded with news or opinions that reinforce our existing views, our bias grows stronger. This is a dangerous phenomenon because it can alienate us from reality. We see this in echo chambers, where people develop deep-seated biases, such as a group of individuals believing that a certain nationality is inherently inferior. When someone from that nationality makes a mistake, these groups will use it as evidence to confirm their prejudices. This cycle of bias and misinformation creates a distorted view of reality. Yet, if we step back and examine the bigger picture, we'll realize that the news often repeats itself. Human history moves forward, but in many ways, it's cyclical. Ancient Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius once remarked that life, no matter how long you live, essentially shows you the same events over and over. Empires rise and fall, wars break out, political conflicts repeat, and humanity continues its familiar patterns. The tragedy we see in the media today is just a rehash of the same stories that have played out time and time again throughout history. The American philosopher Henry David Thoreau famously criticized the value of communication in his day, suggesting that much of what we hear or read is simply gossip disguised as news. He argued that if you've seen one tragedy reported, you've seen them all. The patterns of sensationalist news, stories about crimes, accidents, disasters, are nothing new. Fear-mongering, a tactic to get more attention, is just another age-old trick. So, is the world really as bad as we think it is? It depends. There's a vast difference between how we perceive the world and how it actually is. Our perception is limited by our senses and our own cognitive biases, but that doesn't mean we can't strive for clarity. A person with a clear vision of the world understands that while the media plays a role in informing us, it often distorts reality for the sake of profit. In truth, the flood of alarming news we see daily represents only a tiny fragment of the world. In many ways, today's news is like a giant soap opera. Instead of fictional characters and stories, we are presented with real-world events, dramatically magnified for entertainment. But when you step away from the constant stream of sensationalist media, the world is much more peaceful and mundane than it appears on screen. For every catastrophe reported, there are countless tranquil moments going unnoticed. Every day, billions of people are living their lives without experiencing the tragedies that dominate the news. Next time you feel overwhelmed by the media, turn off your devices and step outside. You'll notice the world around you is far calmer than it seems online. People are going about their daily routines. Trees are still growing, birds are still singing, and the sun continues to rise every morning. Remember that the vast majority of news stories are just fleeting moments, quickly forgotten. Life, on the whole, is not as terrifying as it may seem from your screen. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to stay updated with more thought-provoking content.